So, for those unfamiliar with your work, could you share your journey into founding MAPS and kind of what inspired you to focus on psychedelic research?
Yeah. Well, MAPS was started in 1986. MDMA was criminalized in 1985. And I had started a nonprofit before MAPS in 1984 with Elise Agar and Debbie Harlow. And this was a organization that we were using in anticipation of the DEA wanting to criminalize MDMA. When I learned about MDMA in 82, it had already been used for about 5 or 6 years as a therapy drug, but it had started to escape out to becoming a party drug under the name ecstasy. So it was pretty clear that under Nancy Reagan and Just Say No and Ronald Reagan and escalation of the drug war, MDMA was going to be criminalized as ecstasy. And we had this advantage in that we knew that the ecstasy was attracting public attention, but it didn't seem that the DEA knew about the therapeutic use of MDMA under the code name Adam. So we were able to prepare ahead of time and bring MDMA when it was still legal to all sorts of people that would be willing to try it and then potentially stand up in court to talk about the value of it because they wouldn't be acknowledging a crime. Anyway, we won the hearing and the DEA ignored the recommendations of the judge and criminalized MDMA anyway. So I started MAPS realizing we have to go through the FDA. That was the only avenue at the moment. And I thought that MDMA is the most gentle of all the psychedelics, and we needed the sympathetic patients, and MDMA for PTSD became the priority, the strategic priority. But to answer your other part of your question, why did I even want to do this kind of stuff? That really began 52 and a half years ago when I was 18. Now I'm 71. And it was 1972. I was a Vietnam War draft resistor studying Gandhi and nonviolent resistance, planning to go to jail to drain the system, the war machine of resources, instead of going. And I identified as a counterculture drug-using criminal. Yeah. But my inspiration for psychedelics, I bought all the propaganda as I was growing up in high school. And particularly, I thought if you did 5 or 6 times LSD, you were certifiably insane. That's what we were taught, And
Yeah, well, we were taught something similar along that, or if, you take a couple hits and think you were, an orange, what was it, a glass of orange juice or something, so.
Yeah, did you get this thing about your chromosomes are going to be damaged and you'll have deformed babies, or?
Yeah, I remember something like that. Dare was probably one of the most harmful, they're like, oh, here's all these fun drugs, here's what they do, now don't go find them. Probably one of the worst, or things around, programs around drugs abstinence that you could possibly come with. But I would hope that in this day and age, we'd be moving beyond abstinence-only education everywhere, as we could see it, and start focusing maybe on harm reduction,
Yeah, and I would say beyond that is what we're sort of trying to do is benefit enhancement, not just harm reduction. How do you educate people honestly? But I'll just say, so when I was 18, I bought all this propaganda, or when I was almost 18, I was in my last year of high school, and I read this book, and the book was phenomenal. And the friend of mine who loaned it to me after I gave it back to him said the author wrote some of this while he was under the influence of LSD. And I said, that's impossible. LSD doesn't do anything good. You can't create magnificent pieces of literature influenced by LSD. It just doesn't work. And they said, oh, check it out. Well, it turned out it was Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And that's what broke the spell for me of everything. I thought, this is phenomenal. The fact that he could write some of this under LSD, and that he did LSD and wrote the rest of it, and that he had this, it just was mind-boggling to me. I see you're wearing, a Dead and Company shirt.
Yeah, I've seen them at least every year since, I went to the Santa Clara show. It was in 2016.